Hey everyone, what is up? Welcome back to Higurashi When They Cry. Today we will be recording episode 16. We're now averaging one episode a year over the past 2 years. That's pretty incredible, right? You're welcome. No, seriously, this is going to be an interesting episode. So at the end of the last episode, they were kind of suggesting that Rika might be in danger. It's a frightening thought, right? I like Rika a lot. Something I was thinking about a bit. It was something I had kind of alluded to in the video at first, but then kind of forgot about at the end. I think there's reason to worry about Rika. Not about her safety, about our safety around Rika. She's promising to provide us help, but I can't help but remember, like, she was covered in dirt and grass. There was something going on right before we started talking to her. We don't really know what it was. In my head, I'm like, that could easily have been something sinister, right? I feel like they wouldn't have bothered with that description if it was just nothing. So I'm starting to wonder if all this talk of Rika being in danger is just another misdirection. I feel like this author loves their misdirection. I wouldn't be shocked if this is one of them. I'm not saying one way or the other, really, but I really wouldn't be shocked if this is going to be like a misdirection and Rika was never in danger. But the easiest way to find out is to hit continue, so let's just do that. One thing I do want to say, actually, before we start, I appreciate the turnout on the last video. I was kind of shocked. It was higher than I expected. Got a lot of comments from some familiar faces. Video performed pretty well in terms of views. Even compared to the old Higu videos, like back when I was uploading sort of regularly. It was pretty scuffed back then, if we're being truthful. But it was cool to see. I appreciate it. I'm glad people are back. I hope you continue to enjoy the content, as you presumably used to. Yeah, that's that. I guess let's go ahead and jump into the video now, for real. And load our save. End of chapter 9. And I always check these like I didn't look at them already. Yeah. Alright. So let's just go ahead and hit continue. After hanging up on Shion, I searched for Rika-chan's phone number on my school's contact list. There it is. My fingers trembled with urgency. I failed multiple times to put in the simple 5-digit number. Dang, it's kind of impressive.
Keichi, こんな時間に電話？夜遅くは先方に失礼だからよしなさい。
今はそれどころじゃないんだよ。
Ooh. Shouted angrily at my mother, listening to the dial tone. Yeah, I mean, she's not completely wrong. I think she doesn't realize that in our head, it's like genuinely that she might be in danger. Pick up. Come on, pick up. The time was 11 p.m. It certainly wasn't early. It was essentially the middle of the night. Had Rika-chan already gone to bed? Her phone would be ringing constantly, though, so would she get back up for me? Rika-chan didn't pick up. She didn't pick up. She didn't pick up. Maybe she just happened to miss it. Maybe her bed was just too far away from the phone. The sound of a phone ringing gets clearer and clearer the longer you go on sleeping. Then, the bathroom? Yeah, she must be taking a bath. Doubtful. If that was the case, then even if she heard the phone, she wouldn't be able to pick up. It's a little late to be taking a bath. It was possible she normally took baths right before going to bed. I'll wait 30 minutes, then try calling again. Dang, the 11:30 p.m. call is wild. Even as I was thinking that, I called her house over and over again. I kept calling, over and over, again and again. I kept on calling her, but she didn't pick up even once. I think I kept trying for about 30 minutes, yet she wasn't picking up. So much for waiting 30 minutes. Bro tried for 30 minutes. Were my phone calls so persistent that she had gotten scared of picking up the receiver? No, that couldn't possibly be it. There was no point in doing this any longer. The best thing to do would be to go there in person. Where was Rika-chan's house, though? Shit. I've never even asked her where she lived. Her residence was written there in the contact list, but it was an address with mostly numbers, so I couldn't tell where it was just by reading it. Isn't there a map or something in here? Rika Furude. Her last name was Furude. It was a bit of an odd last name, so it might be easy to find. Thinking that, I rummaged around the drawer with the phone book, but could only find things like takeout menus and phone numbers for public establishments. Shit. I tore one thing after another out of the drawer, but I didn't come up with any clues as to where Rika-chan's house was. Calm down, Keiichi Maibara. If you don't know, then just ask. Ask someone who does know.
そうだ。レナなら知ってるに違いない。
I looked up Rena's phone number on the contact list. Yeah, this dude he's paranoid. He is worried, right? Because I'm like, I mean, you don't, obviously, I think it's pretty obvious. You don't do any of this right now if you don't actually think Rika's in very real danger. You just wait until tomorrow, right? But if you think she's not going to make it to tomorrow, obviously, you know, these are the lines you take. So, is he right to be this paranoid is really the question there. Rena Ryugu. There she was. It was just 11:30, midnight, just calling up people.
もしもし、竜宮です。
It was the voice of a grumpy-sounding man. Yeah, I wonder why he's grumpy. It must have been Rena's father. I am calling in the middle of the night. Need to be polite.
夜分遅くに申し訳ありません。前原と申しますが、レナさんはいらっしゃいますか？レイナは風呂に入っていますが。あ、出たかな。レイナ、友達から電話だぞ。
Oh, right. Rena Ryugu was her real name, wasn't it? I'd gotten so used to calling her Rena that hearing her real name caught me a little off guard.
もしもし、お電話変わりました。
あ、俺だよ。ケイチだ。夜遅くにすまん。
あれ？ケイチ君？こんな時間に何かな？
実はリカちゃんの家がどこにあるのか知りたいんだ。
Rena seemed a little appalled that I'd call her for something like that at this hour. However, she spoke her next words seriously, as if she'd caught on to how urgent my need was.
いいよ。フルデ神社の境内に集会所があるよね。その裏手に2階建ての倉庫小屋があるのを知ってるかな？そこに住んでるんだよ。
I couldn't immediately visualize the place, but as long as I knew she lived on the shrine grounds, I'd just have to take a look around.
わかった。ありがとう。こんな遅くにすまなかったな。親父さんに謝っといてくれ。
そんなのはいいよ、ケイチ君。それより、どうしてリカちゃんの家を聞くのかな？
Yeah, I mean, that's the... I don't think most people would, like, take to that call in the middle of the night and be like, yes, this is normal. Like, at 11:30, midnight, he needs this information. Rena asked in an unusually sharp way, halting me before I could hang up the phone. I hesitated for a moment about whether to tell her. He was killed because I told him.
ケイチ君、聞こえてるなら答えてほしいな。どうしてリカちゃんの家の場所をこんな時間に聞きたいのかな？
Yeah, I mean, what do you say? I have a reason to worry about her safety? Like, why? Rena affected her usual tone, but beneath her words lay a certain tension, like she'd intuitively sensed something was going on. What will you do, Keiichi? You probably should have figured that out before you called. If it's Rena, can't I tell her? No. He was killed because he found out. I revealed everything, so he was killed.
ケイチ君、レナは真剣に聞いてるんだけどな。答えてほしいよ。
Rena asked me once again in a tone so forceful I couldn't even imagine her ever using it normally. I was taken aback by her vigor. Rena was Rika-chan's friend too. She had the right to be concerned about Rika-chan disappearing. If I told Rena, then, even if only for a moment, I could drive away my horrifying fears. Oh yeah, right.
理由を聞かれると困るんだが。
Rena's tone was seriousness itself. Just from that tone, I could feel her saying, "No matter what you say, Keiichi-kun, I'll believe you." That subtle sense of security gave me the courage to reveal the truth.
リカちゃんが危ない気がするんだ。
それは虫の知らせかな？それともリカちゃんに危険が迫っている何か確信がある？
We have a reason, and we probably can't actually tell her. I really didn't have time to go back and forth with Rena about this. Still, I think listening to her calm voice soothed my pointless impatience.
確信はないけど。
Yet, I still hesitated. I told Rika-chan that we had snuck into the ritual storehouse. The mayor, to whom Shion had confessed before that, had already disappeared. So, it was possible that Rika-chan also... I didn't know how to explain it to Rena. While I was tongue-tied, Rena spoke up.
変なこと聞いてごめんね。考えたら確信なんか必要なかった。
Rena laughed a little, seeming a bit absent-minded. Excuse me. I wasn't exactly in the mood to laugh, so this time I was dumbfounded. Rena continued in a cheerful, yet still purposeful
友
voice.
達のことが心配になって、それを確かめるのに理由なんかいらないと思う。
I mean, at this hour, right, I think most friends would appreciate if you had a reason for visiting.
仮にリカちゃんが寝てて、それを起こしてしまったとしても、それが理由なら、私たちは誰も怒らないと思うよ。
I feel like that's one of those things where it's like, I appreciate your interest in my well-being, but if you wake me up at midnight under, like, you know, and you're saying, like, I was worried about your safety, right? And you don't give me a real reason, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know that that's, like, you know, like, maybe I wouldn't get too mad, but, like, I wouldn't be shocked if, like, even if Rika's fine today, like, is he just as paranoid tomorrow? Right? Does he do the same thing tomorrow? That would be terrible. That would be exhausting, right? As the person getting checked up on, right? I don't know. Don't completely agree with that, but Rena is just trying to help us out, calm us down a little bit, it seems. Be supportive. Rena, thank you.
じゃあ、まずはケイチ君に確認するね。リカちゃんの家に電話はしたんだよね。それでどうしても繋がらないから、家の場所を聞いてきたんだね。
Right.
ああ。10分以上は鳴らし続けたと思う。ひょっとしたら気づかなくて寝てるだけなのかも。
リカちゃんの家はとても狭いの。だから電話が鳴ったら、たとえ寝ていても気づかないわけはないよ。さとこちゃんもいるんだから、2人揃って気づかないわけはない。
さとこってリカちゃんと一緒に住んでるのか？
I suppose that shouldn't shock me after Satoko's parents died and then the people who took her in. I think one of them died. I don't know if both of them did. Or I don't know if there was both of them. I just know that the, step aunt? For some reason that's in my head. That was the person who was Satoko's second caretaker. Who then, passed away. Or was killed. I don't want to just say passed away. I feel like that kind of undersells it. Who was killed during the Watanagashi the year before this one. I want to say it was like step aunt. I know it wasn't like directly her mother or her father, right? So I guess the specifics of it don't matter a ton. But anyways, it's not that shocking, but I never had considered that possibility. I'm gonna be honest.
知らなかったの？今はその話は後ね。とにかく電話をそれだけ鳴らして誰も出ないのは絶対におかしいよ。
Rena understood that the situation wasn't normal far faster than I could have ever imagined her to. It made her seem dependable. However, the fact that Rena had acknowledged this also meant that the best case possibility of it all just being the result of my own needless fears went out the window.
私も今からすぐにリカちゃんの家に行くね。一緒に行く？
Yeah.
なら迎えに行くよ。
Yeah, we could use any assistance we can get. Look, Rena being the one assisting us, it's a little frightening at times, but I think at times I'd rather have Rena than Keichi go alone, you know? If that makes sense.
わかった。
Even if there's real reason to worry about Rena.
じゃあいつもの待ち合わせ場所で合流しよう。待ってるぞ。
私、ケイチ君の家に迎えに行くから、だからお家で待ってていいよ。それからご家族に、私と一緒にリカちゃんの家に行ってくるって。
うちでいいのか？時間のロスのような。
あと、みーちゃんには電話した？
No.
みーちゃんはこういう時、
Okay.
すごく頼もしいの。
I'll give you that. She is.
まだなら、私から電話しておくね。
Wait, why would you give her the call, though? I mean, if you're the one who has to walk all the way over here, wouldn't it make more sense for us to call while you're walking? Whatever. My thoughts froze for a moment. Shion had just told me to be careful around Mion during our phone conversation a little while ago. But, like, I mean, I don't know if you can... I don't know how you explain to Rena why you wouldn't want Mion there. If the Sonozaki main house was somehow lurking behind the surface of the annual free deaths, then the current heir to the family, Mion, wouldn't be uninvolved. So, wouldn't that mean she wasn't uninvolved in what happened this year to Takano-san and Tomitake-san? And also the mayor's disappearance? Possibly, but...
じゃあね、すぐに行くからね。待っててね。
It's all Rena said before hurriedly hanging up. Now wasn't the time to be doubting Mion. Yeah, unfortunately that is kind of accurate. Right. Again, I have my reservations about Rena and Mion. But, like, I don't know. This also kind of feels like I guess this is a good time to kind of shank Keichi. Right? You know, potentially. That's, like, a big worry, is that two people who have very valid reasons to be concerned about them are now in the middle of the night meeting up with us and presumably taking us in the dark along to Rika's place. And I'm sure there are plenty of isolated spots along that path, right? I don't think Keiichi's just going to get hit with a quick little shank and then he's dead and we move perspective or something, or the chapter ends, right? I don't think that'll happen, but I mean, even just some information could be gleaned, right, from him, right? They might confront him, right, with those crazy eyes, right? I don't know. We'll have to see. Now isn't the time to be doubting Mion. I needed to make sure Rika-chan was safe. Yeah, and I mean, you just still have a reason that you're doing all this that you got to keep in mind. I got changed and grabbed the key to my bike. I figured things would go more smoothly if we met up in the place we usually do before school. Rena wouldn't need to come all the way to my house, and she told you to wait, so... My parents would probably have objected if I told them I was leaving, so I creeped out without a word. The night was unusually warm and disagreeably humid. Classic. She said that Rika-chan and Satoko lived together, right? Then it wasn't only Rika-chan. Satoko wasn't there either? Realizing that them living together really meant caused my thoughts to immediately take a turn for the worse. It can't be. Satoko is... She's got nothing to do with any of this. Even if there were a reason for Rika-chan to disappear, there shouldn't be one for Satoko.
Keiichi-kun!
Rena was really fast. She approached me on her bike at an amazing speed. Her breath was ragged, painting a clear picture of just how hurriedly she'd been going.
Oh, Rena, さあ行こうぜ。
ケイチ君、私、お家で待っててって言ったはずだよ。
Yeah, I was gonna say, she told you to wait at the house, and I'm worried that she's not gonna be happy that we didn't. Rena's expression was all business. Was she mad? Came out of the blue, and I faltered for a moment.
いや、ここで合流した方が早く出発できると思ってさ。
Makes you wonder if there was something she wanted to do along the way. Out of our prying eyes.
ケイチ君は本当に分かってるの？
Rena shouted, clearly angry. I'd never seen Rena like this before.
分かってるのかって何がだよ。
Rena seemed to notice she was scaring me, took a couple of deep breaths, and continued as if admonishing me, but her expression didn't soften at all.
ケイチ君、昨日村長さんがいなくなって村中で大騒ぎになったよね。
ああ。
そんな中でケイチ君はリカちゃんとサトコちゃんがいなくなったって言ってるんだよ。
Right.
ああ、そういうことになるな。
じゃあもっと用心しなくちゃダメだよ。こんな夜中にたった一人でこんなところで突っ立ってるなんて不用心にも程があるんだから。
She raises excellent points. We're gonna ignore the fact that she's one of the things that makes standing out here alone in the middle of the night dangerous, but, like, you know, she does make excellent points. I began to understand where Rena's anger was coming from. I mean, in all fairness, well, I guess him standing around is worse than Rena, like, quickly biking over to his house.
ご家族にはちゃんと私とリカちゃんの家に行くって伝えたよね。
Nope.
万が一私とケイチ君が揃って失踪しちゃうようなことがあっても、
No,
いつどの辺でいなくなったのかを残すことができる。
we told no one. Rena was perfectly level-headed in this emergency situation. Ever since the night of the Watanagashi. Every night, someone had died or disappeared. On the night itself, Takano-san and Toмотake-san met strange ends. On the next night, the Elder vanished. Now, on the next night after that, Rika-chan and Satoko were nowhere to be found. That might be a little early to say that, but I hadn't been thinking of anyone but myself, but it wasn't enough to say that Hinamizawa was a little weird at the moment. It was, in fact, extremely strange. That is underselling it still, to be honest. Ren had even anticipated our own disappearances, and had told me to tell my family where I was going. I was embarrassed in my own carelessness, and the need to be embarrassed made me afraid of the night.
ごめん、まだ行ってなかった。
Yeah.
じゃあ一緒に言いに行こう。
Yeah, you kind of fumbled hard. With Rena beside me, I wheeled back towards my house. Rena is, like, being real dependable right now, and I like that. I don't know. I've always said this, right? Like, even back in chapter 1, I always said this, that, like, I want to trust them so bad. It's kind of impossible to trust them, given the context and the circumstances that we've seen. But, like, man, I want to believe Rena is, like, a good, dependable ally. That would be fantastic. Fantastic. And so, I mean, this is a good chance for her to show that side. Like, I don't know. And if she shows off, like, she shows to be a nice, dependable ally within the next chapter or two, right? Like, you got to start to wonder, right? You really got to start to wonder, like, what's actually going on with some of these villagers. It's that kind of dichotomy, I suppose is the word I'm looking for. The duality, even, like, just you know what I get. Like, on one hand, she had the crazy eyes in chapter 1, and the fact that it's in chapter 1, it means you can't ever put that out of mind, right? You can never forget that, right? If in chapter 2 she's a reliable ally, I don't know. Brings a lot of things into question. Also, this is really random, but the moon actually looks pretty good. Like, I don't know, I studied, like, astronomy this year, and basic stuff, like, even just these lines right here, right, which are, like ejecta from, like, impacts, right, that just went in various directions, right? Like, I'm like, that's kind of funny that they made sure to include stuff like that. That's kind of cool. I like that detail. Sorry, really small tangent. Let's keep moving. We're in a really dramatic scene right now. I need to keep it moving instead of stopping to talk. The moon seemed strangely high in the sky. A sky that was uselessly vast and cold, so that no matter what, it would never seem to me like a dream. This cruel fact had already confronted me. On such a crazy night, Rena had been unimaginably dependable. Hinamizawa's metamorphosis, enough to make Rena caution me against carelessness, was, to me, the most fearsome thing of all. The moon seemed strangely high in the sky. We met up with Mion on the way, and she, of course, was unsure whether to believe me about Rika-chan and Satoko's disappearance.
ケイちゃん、本気で言ってんの？もし冗談だったらかなり怒るよ。
Well, we are not joking about our experience calling them and that reason to believe, you know, like, that they're in danger. We're not joking at all. Whether it will prove to be correct, who can say, but Mion was clearly displeased. If this were a joke, it wasn't very funny. I understood how indiscreet my words were. Ever since the day before yesterday, someone had either died or vanished every night. Rika-chan and Satoko disappearing after all that was something you just couldn't say, even in jest.
みーちゃん、本当に冗談だったなら怒るんじゃなく笑おうよ。
So that means they're safe.
だって冗談なんだから。
It'd be a bad one,
私
but
たちはそれが冗談であることを確かめなくちゃいけない。
it'd be a really bad joke, I'm gonna be honest.
そうだね。機嫌の悪そうなことを言ってごめん。
However indiscreet a joke it may have been, if we learned that our friends were safe, it would end up as nothing more than a funny story. Having been warned about that by Rena, Mion gave me a dry smile, the tension she felt loosening a bit. She mounted her bicycle as well. Our 3 bicycles' lights flashed down the pitch-black roads. They were some of the only illumination outside.
ケイちゃんはなぜ急にこんな時間にリカちゃんの家に電話なんかする気になったわけ？
Mion asked me the same thing that I had trouble explaining to Rena.
虫が知らせた。じゃあ、おかしいか。
I couldn't quite tell because it was dark, but I thought I could see Mion smiling very ambiguously. I definitely understood that she wasn't convinced, though, despite the
俺
darkness.
さ、うたた寝してる時に悪い夢を見ると、どうしても気になっちゃうんだよ。
Yeah, this is all
ケイ
lies.
チ君はそれでリカちゃんがさらわれる夢を見たわけかな。
いや、もっと漠然とした予感みたいなものだよ。リカちゃんが電話に出てくれたなら、レナやミオにも続けて電話するつもりだったよ。
You mean like I would not have called you? Lies smoothly babbled out of my mouth, makeshift though they were. Well, he's a much better liar this time. I was lying because I thought telling them I was connected to Shion would be like silently admitting we'd stolen into the ritual storehouse together that night. Mion didn't press me any further. I think they probably both know the real reason. I don't know whether that convinced her. Or maybe she figured that making sure Rika-chan and Satoko were safe would be faster than making an issue out of it. I think that's more likely. I felt relieved and immediately a little guilty. Mion hadn't really been acting any differently these last few days. I'm still trying to distance myself from her for some reason. It was only because of what I had heard from Shion and Oishi-san. She was the successor to some kind of super extravagant gang family. No. Was I just trying to force myself to forget? Don't do that, Keichi Maibara. Wasn't it Mion who was the first to ask about the night of Watanagashi? Such a harsh tone at that. I already forgotten the terror I felt. At the time, Mion looked like someone different from the Mion I knew. When I think about that Mion, and Shion and Oishi-san's descriptions of Mion made a tiny bit more sense. That's it, isn't it? If it wasn't for how she acted that day, I wouldn't be feeling this way towards her now. What on earth was going on with her back then? I was conveniently thinking only of everything she had done after that, while disregarding the very first thing, the thing I should have been looking at most, wasn't I? Mion was pedaling her bicycle in front of me, her long hair fluttering in the wind. No matter how long I looked at her back, it never gave me answers to any of my questions. Yeah, I suppose it wouldn't. We went all the way to the stone steps leading up to the shrine grounds. Of course, we weren't going to want to haul our bikes up there, so we parked them beside the staircase
フルデ
instead.
神社か。
みんな公園みたいな感覚で勝手に出入りしてるけど、本当はここは古出家の立派な私有地なんだよ。
So the entire shrine is private property. It really makes you feel the passage of time. 10 or 20 years ago, it would have looked the exact same.
だとすると、フルデ家って結構な旧家なんじゃないのか？
That is accurate.
代々続いた由緒ある。
Yep.
ない。おかしいよ。
Rena said something clearly disquieting, so I ran over to
どう
her.
したレナ？
リカちゃんとサトコちゃんはいつもここに自転車を止めてるはずなの。ほら、どこにもない。
I took a look around. Indeed, there were no other bicycles aside from the ones we'd taken to get here.
他の場所に止めてる可能性もあるんじゃない？例えば、担いで石段を上がったとか。
女の子には無理だよ、ケイチくん。
Just as she said, I couldn't imagine Rika-chan and Satoko lugging their bikes all the way up there. We hadn't yet knocked on Rika-chan's door, but reality was already sparking some ideas that weren't what you'd call good. Maybe they were just parked under some trees and we hadn't noticed them. I refused to believe that not being able to find their bikes here was proof that they'd
行
disappeared.
こうぜ。家に行った方がはるかに確実だろう。
Yeah, we all nodded and dashed up the stone steps. We passed through the red arch and came out onto the shrine grounds, which was covered in neat gravel. It was so quiet here, as though the Watanagashi festival had never happened.
で、リカちゃんたちが住んでいる家ってのはどこにあるんだ？
こっち、ついてきて。
Rena took the lead and sprinted off. We went towards the assembly hall behind the shrine, then looped around behind it. In the darkness of the night, we found a small, prefab two-story shack that looked like a warehouse.
明かり消えてるね。寝てるんじゃない？
ノックしてみよう。
It would be nice if they were just sleeping and we accidentally woke them out of their slumber. Wouldn't that be nice? Rena and Mion neared the shack, which didn't really look like a place people would live. They had such a beautiful shrine, so I'd figured they lived in an equally beautiful house. It was far from what I had expected.
リカちゃん、サトコちゃん、いる？
Rena shouted up towards the second floor. Her voice was restrained at first, but it steadily grew louder. No answer. In fact, there wasn't any sort of activity in the house at all.
寝てるのかもしれない。起こしてみよ
Mion banged on the shutter with both hands, and the loud sounds echoed into our surroundings. They would have to notice this much noise. They would turn on the light in their room, fling open their windows, and yell, "What time do you think it is?" That, however, wasn't happening. There was absolutely no response. Mion stopped slamming her fists on the shutter, and a sudden silence fell over us. The silence aroused terrible thoughts in us. I could feel the blood draining from my face.
鍵かかってる。どこかから中に入れないかな。
Rena showed no signs of stopping. Where's Tomatake when you need him? It didn't look like she would admit they weren't. Why did I just forget how to use my eyes and read? I was just reading the sentence, and all of a sudden I was like, wait, I didn't keep moving my eyes. It didn't look like she would admit they weren't there until we went inside and saw for ourselves. Our refusal to give in gave me strength.
2階の窓とか鍵をかけ忘れてないかな。俺ちょっと試してみる。
う。ケイちゃん、はしご。
Mion brought over a ladder that was standing against the house. The footing was a little unstable for me to be climbing it, but Mion held the ladder firmly in place for me. I hadn't climbed too many ladders. My inexperience with them exposed, I climbed up one step at a time and tried to open each window on the second floor.
みーちゃん、私念のため本宅の方も見てくるね。すぐ戻るから。
Going alone is dangerous. Rena darted away. What? A main house?
フルデ家の本当の家だよ。両親が亡くなって以来、ずっと放置してあるそうだけど。
Okay, so it's just abandoned. Is that just a sound effect? No, it is the start of a song. We heard this one. By the way, how is the music volume? I noticed in some of the videos, when I was watching them, it seemed really quiet. Is it, like, relatively okay? I'm looking at the mixer. It actually looks still kind of quiet. I might have to rewatch this part later and see. If anyone has any thoughts on the music volume, because I do want the music to be audible, right? If anyone has thoughts on the music volume, just let me know. Let's move on.
あ、そうか。リカちゃんのご両親って亡くなってるんだよな。
At that point, I recalled something else. Wasn't Satoko living here too?
サトコも親なしだよ。
Yeah.
お社様のたたりってことで、お兄さんだったサトシ君もいなくなっちゃって。
Yeah, they have been taking L's because of this curse or whatever is actually causing it.
サトシって前に聞いた名前だな。
I remembered. He was the one who disappeared last year because of the curse.
それ以来、サトコはリカちゃんと一緒にこの小屋で暮らしてるんだよ。
What a depressing state of affairs for them. I mean, like, we already knew how rough it was for them. We have heard this song. Anyways, it's obvious, like, you already know, like, thinking about it, how bad it was for them, but when they, like, actually start to say it, like, victimized that much by this curse, right? I mean, God. It's kind of it's terrible. It's terrible. You can only wonder how it's going to impact their role in the story.
互いに身寄りのない一人ぼっち同士。
Yeah, that's one thing I was thinking, because they're still together, at least, right? Like, that's kind of a found family type deal.
助け合ってね。
本宅って言ったか？そっちで暮らした方が楽だろうに。
Would it really be easier to live in a gigantic house when there's only two of you? The curtains were drawn, so I couldn't get a good look inside to see, but two young girls living together seemed like a pretty tough life.
初めはそうしてたみたい。でも、両親を思い出すから辛いって言って。
That makes a lot of sense, too. Just for, yeah, trauma reasons. I was gonna say, I mean, it would also just be a pain to maintain that giant house, presumably. Presumably giant house with two people. But, yeah, if every time you look around, or you're walking around, all you can think about is your parents, yeah. I can see why a young girl couldn't handle that. God, the fact that there's just no one there for them. Like, parents-wise. There's, like, no parental figures for either of them. God, you really don't think about how depressing that is. Like, or I didn't, at the very least. I didn't think about how depressing their situation was until just now. I had no idea. I feel really bad for them. They were normally so cheerful at school that I never even realized an atom of this.
リカちゃんもサトコも大変なんだな。
呪われてるんだよ。
え？
Suddenly, Mion said something in such a low voice that it sounded like she was really cursing someone, and I didn't let it slide. Whoa. I turned around on the ladder to face her and asked
ミ
again.
オン、お前、今、なんて言った？
呪われてるって言ったの。
Okay. Mion, still holding onto the ladder, brought her head up to look me in the eyes. As soon as our eyes met, an absolute zero jolt of electricity surged through my body. Mion's eyes clouded over, and within them boiled and bubbled a stew of chaos. They whirled around and around like a raging sea, and bubbles floated to the surface. I had at some point been trapped on this ladder, like being cornered on a dead-end street.
ミオン、お前、なんて顔してんだよ。
Yeah, and it just so happens Rena's nowhere in the area. I intended to follow that up with, "You're going too far with this joke," and give her a forced smile. However, On such even footing as I was, the only thing that came out of my mouth was a hoarse groan as I desperately struggled to not let nausea overwhelm me.
王女里子はね、お社様のたたりを一身に受けた呪われた子なの。
Mion answers, with a response to something I never asked, as if replying to somebody else's question. Yeah. Okay, I honestly assumed they meant, Rika. Satoko's the one that she is saying is cursed. Interesting.
公園の展望台から転落死したのは両親だけ。あの子をミソッカス扱いしてた冷たい両親だけが死んで、あの子は一人だけ助かった。引き取り先であの子をいじめたおばは、綿流しの夜に異常者に脳みそがぐっちゃぐちゃに飛び散って、頭が原型をとどめないくらいにめった打ちにされて殺された。
Dang, it was that bad. Okay. Good to know.
いつもあの子をかばってたサトシ君も、あの子の誕生日に突然消えてしまった。
On her birthday? Bro, that is a pile of misery. That is like comical. Like, in an evil way, that is comical.
あの子をいじめていなかったのに消されてしまった。警察は家出したんだって決めつけたけど、サトシ君は逃げ出すような人じゃなかった。いつも一生懸命、誰の力も借りずにコツコツと一人懸命に努力する人だった。たった一人の妹のために身を粉にして頑張ってたのに消されてしまった。あの子のためにだけに生きていたのに消されてしまった。かわいそうなサトシ君。なんて報われないサトシ君。なんて恩知らずなあの子なの。あの子は呪われた子。あの子に近づけばそれが誰でも末路は同じ。
And now she's saying Rika's suffering the same
た
fate.
たりで死ぬかたたりで消えるか。あの子に安らぎなんてあるものか。あの子に安らぎなんてあるものか。リカちゃんが消えたのもきっとサトコのせいだよ。違いない違いない違いない違いない違いない違いない違いない違いない違いない違い違い違い違い違い違い違い違い。
Wow. Mion is, not taking this well. Mion was mumbling words over and over that were no longer coherent. Her shoulders were trembling so hard that I could feel it through the ladder. I almost lost my footing. It made me realize just how far away the ground really
落
was.
ち着けよミオ。何のことを言ってるのかわからないよ。
I wasn't sure if she even heard me. Mion rocked back and forth, and that rocking and trembling was becoming even more violent. Help me! The ladder, it's falling! Help me! Help! Is it gonna fall? Just then, I heard the sound of many people running towards us.
おいここだ。
I very nearly said help me outright. 4 or 5 adults, led by Rena, ran over here with flashlights.
ケイチ君、みーちゃん、遅れてごめんね。鍵借りてきたよ。
助かったね。
And then Mion's just right back to normal.
どうも窓も戸締まりは完璧らしくてね。困ってた。
When I heard Mion talking like nothing had just happened, I again felt a chill run through me. If, you know, the Hinamizawans are nothing if not fantastic actors. I'll give them that. Right? They can, like, flip a switch and just be back to normal, it seems. Right? In the case of Mion, like, definitely. Rena seemed the same way in Chapter 1. Mion's an interesting one. She was already my favorite character just on, like, who she was in Chapter 1, but as we keep learning more and more about Mion, she's definitely my favorite character so far. This is like, that's just so intriguing. Like, she was literally losing it just now. And just, okay, I'm normal. I was getting worried, guys. Yeah, we know you were worried. Like, we noticed the person currently holding the ladder in place. It was definitely Mion. It was the real Mion Sonozaki. Then, the person muttering to themselves just a few seconds ago. Who was that? The person who was mumbling about terrible things, like curses. Who was that? I jumped down from the ladder as if running away, before Mion turned into that person who wasn't Mion a second time. The adults tried a few different keys on a key ring as they tried to open the big shutter on the first floor.
リカちゃんの家はね、もともとは町会の防災倉庫だったの。だからシャッターの鍵を今でも村長さんの家が預かってるの。
Well, yeah, that's not great in this situation. It means anybody could have gotten into this place, right?
今ではリカちゃんとサトコの指定だけど、まあもともとリカちゃんの家の敷地内だし、誰も文句は言わないけどね。
Mion gave me a smile as she said that. I, however, Could only return her gaze with an aghast expression. Mion was acting all too normal now, but that only contrasted all the more sharply with her earlier un-Mion-like creepiness. Bang. Bam. Clatter, clatter, clatter. Bang. The shutter opened up for the first time in a very long while. Rena located the light switch and wasted no time going inside. Followed her in.
Rika-chan! Satoko-chan! いるなら返事をして!
We climbed a narrow staircase. It had looked like nothing more than a warehouse, and now that I was inside, I could feel how lived in it was. It was a person's home. Somehow, the scent of the two of them filled the place. This was definitely where Rika-chan and Satoko lived. The first floor doubled as a town assembly warehouse, but the second floor was a space entirely for living. This song is new. Ooh. Yeah, this feels like the investigative mystery type theme. Honestly, just the song choice makes me think they're not going to be here. Just like a one-room apartment, past the kitchen was a living room taking up about 150 square feet. Dressers, cupboards, and the like were packed into the space, and in the corner there was a huge pile of clothes that appeared to have just been taken in from drying outside. In the center of the living room was a fold-up table, and on it were small containers for things like soy sauce and salad dressing. The sense of a frugal lifestyle drifted from all of it. It was strange that they weren't here in the middle of the night like this. The adults, climbing the stairs one at a time, began to make a fuss and talk amongst themselves.
どう？やっぱりいない？
いない。
Goodness.
絶対おかしい。
Yeah. The village had just been thrown into chaos yesterday because of the mayor's disappearance. Then today, even Rika-chan and Satoko had... Were they out playing somewhere together? That can't be. Their bicycles aren't here, though. Where would they have gone so late at night? Have they just not come back yet? Where did they go? The adults put forth various possibilities, and the house immediately devolved into a state of confusion. Eventually, Mion settled them down.
信じたくないけど、君吉の村長さんが消えたのが昨日の今日。無関係とは言い切れないね。
Ooh, stuff is getting spicy. I don't know, that sentence just really drove it home how crazy stuff is getting to me. I must say, no one has checked the curry garden. I'm just saying. The adults' faces paled at Mion's declaration. Mai and Rena's did as well.
例えば、ご近所に行ってお茶でもごちそうになって眠っちゃって、起こすに起こせなくなってるなんて可能性ももちろんあるよね。その可能性をまず潰そう。牧野さんは裏手から沢のあたりの家を回ってください。慶太郎さんはおじゃが池の方。岡村さんは。
Mion promptly gave directions to the villagers. The adults followed them without hesitation, despite her age.
私はここに残って電話で片っ端から心当たりに問い合わせてみます。
Yeah, she's like taking a commanding position here. It's kind of interesting just seeing that, right? Like, we've heard about this. We've heard that Mion does this, right? But seeing her just take charge of the situation just like that, right? Fascinating.
じゃあ皆さん、そういうことで。
Got it. The adults all roared in reply and pounded back down the stairs below.
さすがみーちゃんだね。みーちゃんは学校だけじゃなく、ひなみ沢の委員長さんみたいだよね。
茶化さない。ほらどいて。
Somebody's got to take control of the situation realistically, and even if we have valid concerns about Mion, I'm happy to see Mion take control of the situation because someone has to.
おじさんは電話を使うんだから。
Mion grinned proudly, took the receiver, and got started. Rena gave Mion a trusting look, considering her dependable for doing all of this. My feelings, though, were a little more complicated, since her leadership seemed to be affirming the Sonozaki family successor impression that Shion and Oishi-san had given me. Stop right there, Keichi Maibara. None of that matters right now. Yeah, no, that's true. I understand there's very much, there is reason to doubt, but that line right there, the most important thing is to make sure Rika-chan and Satoko are safe, right? I absolutely agree with that. I guess we're just going to reread this line. None of that matters right now. The most important thing is to make sure Rika-chan and Satoko are safe. Yeah. Let's see. Couldn't there be a clue hinting at where they might have gone somewhere in this room?
とはいえ、そんなのわかるはずもないよな。
If we tore the whole place apart and figured out what was different from before, we might be able to speculate, but there's nothing strange about this room. There were no clues in sight. In the first place, I had never been here before. There's no way for me to know what was different if I didn't know how the room usually looked. Yeah, that was something I was about to point out if he didn't. Hey, don't give up, Keichi Maibara. Stop thinking and start looking. For something. In search of something, I tried pulling open the dresser drawers and opened the windows. I didn't uncover anything meaningful, though. Rena, also unable to stand around doing nothing, was looking around the room like I was.
でもレナ、冷蔵庫や流しの下の棚とかを開いてもリカちゃんは見つからないと思うぞ。
Well, you hope not, but...
隠れてるかなって思って。
As we were searching, it got noisy outside. Villagers were quickly assembling here, having heard the commotion. Of course, a lot of them were probably people Mion had called.
私、みんなに話をしてくる。遅かれ、警察も来るだろうしね。大石のやつにも事情を説明しなきゃ。
Yikes. Mion began descending the stairs, and we followed her out to the front of the house. There were already around 10 adults there, and all of them looked uneasy. I suddenly noticed that the old people from the shrine were here as well. They were praying for Rika-chan's safety, rubbing their prayer beads. Man, screw Satoko though, right? This had gotten bad. This wasn't just a problem between friends anymore.
ミオンちゃん、リカちゃまとサトコちゃんがいなくなったってのは本当かい？
The villagers all formed a ring around Mion, swarming her. Mion raised her right hand as if silently telling them to calm down.
誰かの家にお邪魔していないか、町会の回覧区分に沿って全校をまず調べよう。本人たちがこっちの気も知らずに、誰かの家ですやすやとお泊まりしてる可能性もあるわけだからね。
I feel like we just did this whole song and dance yesterday. Well, not us literally, but now we're seeing exactly what Mion was doing, not too long ago. It would definitely be hard for someone to wake up Rika-chan if she'd eaten a good full meal and fallen asleep like a kitten afterwards. Oh, how nice it would be if that were the case.
こんなことは考えたくないけど、もちろん悪いことが起こった可能性もある。
Mion's face grew remarkably more grim, and a wave of silence washed over the adults.
我々も手分けしよう。昨夜の村長探しで回ったところをもう一度回る。
俺たちはダム現場をよく念入りに探してみる。お前さんたちは学校のあたりを探してみてくれ。
Ooh. Okay. I thought they were telling us. I was like, that might, because, like, that's the place I'm most suspicious of.
行こう行こ
う。みんな、昨日も村長さん探しで徹夜だったからね。寝不足で辛いだろうけど、どうかよろしく。
God, I mean, like, I don't know. Seeing Mion like this, it's hard to not want to believe in her, for me, right? It really is hard, right? Like, but this is just one of those things. Everything that Mion or Rena does, you can see it in multiple lights, right? Because of the splits and who they are, right? We know Mion has a sinister side to her. Is that why she's so good at taking command of a situation and leading? Or is she just a natural-born leader, right? Like, using her abilities for good, right? But then you also think she can use those for not so good, right? And, like, there's very valid reason to believe that could be the case. It's like, God, I don't know what to believe, right? Everything basically in Higurashi so far, you can interpret it in multiple ways. And that's the crazy thing about this game so far, right? With just all the amount of mysteries they keep piling on is, I can't fault someone for interpreting things in various ways, right? Any given situation can mean a lot of things. It's a sign of great writing so far, if you ask me. I'm enjoying the writing of this game. Let's keep moving, though. With that as their signal, the adults scattered in every direction. I figured I should scatter somewhere as well, so I started walking unsteadily in a direction no one else had gone in. Oh, was she going to shut that down? I was getting farther and farther from people. I didn't feel scared or anything, though. If someone were made to disappear, Shion and I should be first. It would have been perfectly normal for me to be scared of the dark. However, I didn't feel that way. Why was that? It was because tonight, someone had already disappeared. So nobody else would disappear tonight. It would take some time before I, exhausted as I was, would feel guilt at the cause of my own selfish sense of relief. Yeah, I can get that. That is a little messed up to think. Like, well, I mean, I guess if Rika's gone missing and Satoko's gone missing, I probably won't go missing. Right? It's been one a night. Oh, that kind of abruptly transitioned. That's a nice shot of the city. Or the town. Kind of reminds me of the very first, like, view we got at it, but now we're seeing it at night. All the lights are on. Right? Suddenly, my vision cleared and a cold wind caressed my body. This was the hill from which you could see the whole village. Looking down from this hill, I could see lights on here and there, knew that the entire village had awoken from its slumber. First Takano-san and Tomatake-san, then the mayor, and now even Rika-chan and Satoko had been sacrificed. And word of it was spreading everywhere. The strength in my knees left me. This could no longer be a joke. We could have found them. Mion would have told me I was a worrywart, and it would just be glad we did. And they would have smiled at me. My hopes disappeared as if I were awakening from a dream. That was what the view I could see was telling me. Following my knees, my arms both bent forward onto the ground, and I clawed at it with my nails. I couldn't figure out if I was feeling sorrow or frustration.
俺のせいなのか。
I couldn't endure the burden of my own sin. I had just told Rika-chan about it. It had nothing to do with it. But Rika-chan and even Satoko had been sacrificed. It was like a cross that Shion and I would each have to bear the weight of until we ourselves were erased. Well, if I'm going that far, then the problem started long before that. My original sin of breaking taboo and entering the ritual storehouse without asking. I knew I shouldn't have gone in there from the start. Yet I lost out to cheap curiosity. I hadn't felt so angry at myself until this very moment. There was a crunching sound. I wasn't even interested in who made the noise, despondent as I was. He doesn't even care anymore. Like, whatever.
Keiichi-kun?
You're here to demon me away, just do it.
Keiichi-kun? 大丈夫?
It was Rena. Perhaps my clawing at the ground made it look as though I was having stomach pains. She ran over and rubbed my back to make me feel better.
俺が全部悪いんだ。俺のせいで。俺のせいで。
ケイチ君が何も悪いわけはないよ。
He did, and I think you know that.
自分をどうか責めないでね。
I could tell Rena was doing her best to choose the right words out of consideration for me. That's why I could sense her intent behind those words. Keiichi-kun, you know why Rika-chan and Satoko-chan disappeared, don't you? Is what she really meant to say. Because it was an emergency, Rena had ignored the reason I wanted to make sure Rika-chan was safe, but now that we'd actually confirmed her disappearance, it was only natural Rena would start to wonder about why. However, with the situation having gone this far, I couldn't possibly tell her now. I didn't want to admit that Rika-chan and Satoko had disappeared, but I couldn't let Rena disappear either. Yeah, if he really, really, truly believes the reason that they disappeared is because he told them, he would just be putting more people in danger by saying anything else. This song is really good. I like this song.
ケイチ君、こんな風通しのいいところにずっといたら風邪ひいちゃう。
Rena sat down, bringing her eyes level with mine.
子供たちはね、もう解散して家で寝ろって。
Rena showed me her watch as she said that. It was long past 1 in the morning. Time was passing too quickly. Had I been crawling around here for that long?
もう寝ないと明日の学校に差し支えるよ。大人たちだって昨べも一晩中村長さんを探したから、みんな今夜は少し早めに解散するって。
I was a little upset that they weren't allotting as much time to this as they had to search for the mayor last night. That was something I, the cause of everything, had no right to criticize them for.
大丈夫。さっきね、警察の人も来たの。今、どんどん町から応援のパトカーが来てるよ。
Hearing that remark, I looked down at the village to see that there were indeed more cars than one would normally expect at this hour, coming from the darkness on the other side of the mountain. However, none of their emergency lights were on. Of course, their sirens weren't wailing either. That's right. All of the incidents that occurred right after Watanagashi were seen as the product of Yashiro-sama's curse, and would be handled in secrecy. Rika-chan and Satoko too. Their disappearance would end up exactly like the other serial incidents in the past. Surreptitious, unresolved, declared a mystery, and disappear from memory. Rika-chan's face, her sweet face like a Western doll's, would fade away. Satoko's smile, her energetic, fanged smile, would fade away. The more I tried to remember them, the less I would be able to. I deserved to be called an idiot dozens of times over, and it wouldn't be enough. I couldn't hold back the tears at my own sheer stupidity.
圭一君が何を自分に責めているかわからないけれど、もうやめよう。
I wasn't about to deny it. I couldn't. Even so, I couldn't affirm it either. I wanted to at least keep Rena out of this. If she found out, she would become involved.
頼む。レナ、放っておいてくれないか。俺、きっと、家に帰ったって眠れない。
If I couldn't get to sleep, I at least wanted to search for Rika-chan and Satoko until I collapsed. The entire village was looking, yet they still hadn't been found. I don't think I'd be able to find them if I went looking alone at this point. Still, I had to do it.
俺のせいで消えてしまったんだ。他の探してくれてる人たちよりも先になんか眠れるものか。
I had said that to myself in self-deprecation, but I soon realized that Rena was silently trying to find the meaning in my mumblings. I realized I had misspoke.
圭一君のせいなの？どうしてそう思うのかな？
That can't be. Keiichi-kun, you're not at fault. I was happy that Rena said these things to me, but she only did so because she didn't know the truth. If she knew that everything had been caused by my breaking taboo on the night of Watanagashi, then even Rena would curse my existence. However, I can't even allow for those curses. That would mean confessing my own crimes to Rena. If I spilled even one word of having snuck into the ritual storehouse on the night of Watanagashi, and even Rena could disappear tomorrow night. Gentle, spirited, always joking, always howooing. But at a time like this, the most dependable person in the world, Rena might disappear. I don't want that. Anything but that. This time, I need to bear my own cross, alone.
圭一君がとても仲間思いだって知ってるから、自分を傷つけたくなる気持ちもよくわかるよ。だけど、レナは圭一君のせいじゃないって知ってる。
I worry that she actually does know more than has been let on.
圭一君が悪くないって
Okay.
知ってるから。
Never mind, maybe you don't. Maybe she doesn't. Maybe she doesn't know anything and she's just trusting us. And Keiichi's he's definitely not gonna feel like he earned that.
知ってるって。
The shivering in my veins rushed up my back and replaced the sorrow in my heart with fear. I didn't tell her anything, did I? Maybe I accidentally said something that caused Rena to figure it out? This is bad. Now, Rena will disappear. Rena will disappear. Rena will disappear. And Rena, the same way I always did, grabbed my head and began to pet it roughly.
圭一君、ひょっとしてレナも消えちゃうかもしれないって思ってるのかな。
We are in fact thinking
お
that.
社様のたたりで。
Yeah. She puts more force into the hand rubbing my head.
だったら安心して。レナは消えたりしないよ。絶対に。
どうして消えないなんて自信を持って言えるんだよ。
I mean, someone's been sacrificed every night so far. There's no proof that it wouldn't happen again tomorrow night. There was even less proof after all. The sacrifice wouldn't be Rena. Well, I mean, this is kind of just jumping to conclusions, but I can't say I blame him, really. I don't care who you are. Just please, if you're gonna erase someone, erase me first. Please. Stop cruelly getting rid of people we're close to, like the mayor for Shion, and Rika-chan and Satoko for me. Shion's hysterical shouting came back to mind. They must be planning to kill us last of all. They're not killing the first people who come to mind. They start by killing those we're close to. Then after they've caused us so much pain, they'll kill us. That must be what they're doing.
レナ。
Please, don't disappear. Please don't. As long as I'm still here, I can no longer conceal the sobs welling up within me.
ほら、圭一君に涙なんか似合わないよ。みんなのところに行こう。婦人会の人たちがね、お味噌汁の炊き出しをしてくれてるの。飲むと温まって落ち着くよ。
I don't know if there's much you can do to calm Keichi down right now. Rena prompted me to stand. I didn't have the energy to oppose her, so I stood as she urged me to. Rena's proving to be very dependable in a horrible situation right now. We returned to the shrine grounds to find several gas stoves there with miso soup in big pots. The many villagers there sipped of the soup they were given in dead, stony silence. Their expressions were absolutely exhausted. Everyone had just been running around the village until a little while ago. From the dreary looks on their faces, though, I assumed they hadn't come up with anything yet.
ケイちゃん、どこ行ってたんだよ。ケイちゃんまでいなくなったのかと心配したよ。
He wishes he did.
すまん。
Mion held out some miso soup for me, but I refused the offer. I didn't have much of an appetite.
みーちゃん、どう？何か手がかりはあった？
Mion took a sip of her soup, her expression frank.
全然ない。学校が終わってから家に帰って、二人で自転車に乗ってどこかに行ったらしい。しかも、二人が自転車に乗った姿は全く目撃されていないし。
So no one knows where it is. Or even has a clue. When it gets dark out in Hinamizawa, people quickly vanish from the streets. Aside from adults hurrying back home from town in cars or on bicycles, it was normal to see absolutely nobody walking around outside. It wasn't at all strange that nobody had seen Rika-chan and Satoko riding their bikes.
昨日の村長の時と同じ。
Yeah.
お手上げだよ。
Dang. Saying it like that. Goodness. Mion's apathetic tone pricked my nerves, but then anger quickly subsided. She had been doing all sorts of things to try and find Rika-chan until just a second ago. If I asked her, she'd probably say she was up all night last night too, looking for the mayor, wouldn't she? Must have been far more fatigued than I was. Besides, what about me? I had spent the time hunched over in indecision, all alone. I had no right to say anything about Mion. I'll give you that.
ケイちゃんも辛いだろうけど今夜はこれで休もう。さっき今夜は解散しようってなったところだよ。これを飲んだらもう終わりにしよう。
終わりなのか？
あ、もちろん終わりじゃないよ。明るくなったら警察も増援を入れて徹底的に探すってさ。沖宮の方に行ってる可能性もあるからね。
Yeah, I'm doubtful.
村長の件も含めて獅子骨市全体で目撃情報がないか洗うって言ってる。それよりもケイちゃんだよ。どこに行ってたんだい？いつの間にかいなくなっちゃうから心配したんだよ。
Yeah. I mean, I don't blame her. Suddenly I was on the receiving end, but I didn't have the willpower to respond.
すまん。気をつけるよ。
何もなかった？怪しい人に監視されてるとか、付け狙われてるとか、そういうのはなかった？
Mion demanded with a serious expression. I was being criticized for how inconsiderate I had been, despite being in so much pain. I was frustrated that I was being criticized. It was my sin. I think, that's quite a thing to just go out and say. Makes you wonder if she thinks there's a good chance somebody would have been spying on or stalking him. Kinda makes you wonder how long Rena was there, to be completely honest, but my sin. And I must bear it alone.
何もないよ。
Actually, let me just reread these. Mion demanded with a serious expression. I was being criticized for how inconsiderate I had been, despite being in so much pain. I was frustrated that I was being criticized, but it was my sin. My sin, and I must bear it alone.
でも気をつける。
The interruption in the middle kind of threw me off.
すまん。
Mion, now aware that nothing had happened, heaved a big sigh with her shoulders, looking relieved.
おやおやおや、おいしい匂いが漂ってくると思ったら、これはぜひご商売に預かりたいですね。
Bro just walked in and said, I'll take some miso soup. We heard the repulsive voice of a fat man. Dang! It was Oishi-san, trailed by a handful of police officers. He was acting energetically, in a way unfitting given the situation.
大して残ってないですよ。それでもよければ勝手にどうぞ。
Mion didn't like Oishi-san very much. Her cold attitude, though, didn't seem to bother Oishi-san in the slightest. Probably used to it. It was like splashing water in a frog's face.
ありゃりゃ。味噌汁のお残りって、ちょっと塩分高めなんですよね。参ったな。
This dude is so strange.
君たちはいただきます？
He recommended it to subordinates, but everyone gave dry smiles and refused.
どうですか？警察の方では何か手がかりはつかめましたか？
Doubtful. Rena's smile was warm enough to replace the miso soup.
大丈夫ですよ、お嬢さん。ご安心、ご安心。ちゃんと探してるんですから。
He didn't say a word about having found any new clues. He didn't find anything. In other words, there had been no progress. That sure was an annoying way of beating around the bush. Kind of is.
それよりも、もう本当に遅い時間です。どうぞ若い皆さんはお帰りになってお休みになってください。体に触りますよ。
That is true.
そうだよ。ケイちゃんもレナも今日はもう休みな。あとは税金で働いてるおっさんたちがやってくれるから。
私たちだって税金払ってるんですけどね。蕎麦屋さんが自分の作った蕎麦食ってるみたいな気分ですよ。な。
Oishi is so strange. When you're in such, it becomes all the more apparent how strange he is when you're in such a serious situation like this, and his same attitudes are there, right? Doesn't really change. The same way he'd act at Angel Mort, you know, he's acting right here while someone's missing. I really wasn't in the mood for laughter. In fact, Oishi-san was the only one laughing like an idiot. Kind of a...
じゃあ、本当によろしくお願いしますね。
Could just be like a defense mechanism type thing.
帰ろう、ケイチ君。明日が辛くなるよ。
そうです、そうです。
I would be shocked if he gets any sleep either way.
なんなら、お二人をお送りしてもいいですよ。くまちゃん、車を回してあげてください。
あ、結構です。俺たち、自転車で来てるんで。
ご安心を。私たちワゴン車で来てますから、自転車も積めますよ。
We may have gotten pretty sleepy, but we just needed to ride home at this point. I didn't want to bother the police like that. Rena, however, nodded.
せっかくだからお世話になろうよ。私たちだけで帰るよりきっと安全だよ。
That is true. When I thought about it carefully, I realized that Rena's idea was extremely rational.
そうと決まれば、行きましょう行きましょう。
I can't help but feel like we're gonna get questioned in there, though.
じゃあね。おやすみ。レナもケイちゃんも。
Like, Rena's gonna get dropped off first, and then we're gonna be in the car with Oishi-san for a while. He's gonna be like, Keichi, do you have anything to tell me? That's what I'm feeling.
みーちゃんも早めに休んでね。おやすみ。
I waved my hand as well, saying goodbye. Rika-chan and Satoko still hadn't been found. My unease, however, was steadily being pushed away by sleepiness. Rena showed the police where our bicycles were so that Oishi-san could haul them up into their truck. He prompted us to get into the back seat. I could hear the springs squeaking as I sat down onto a seat that would normally hurt my rear end, but at this point, it was very soft and was more than comfortable enough for me to fall asleep on.
では、レディーファーストで、お嬢さんの家から行きましょう。
Yeah, I had a feeling.
住所はどちらです？
ありがとうございます。
He didn't even figure out which one was along the way first, you know? He said, ladies first, right? Could he just be a gentleman? Sure. Something is telling me he wants to talk to Keichi, though.
私の家はですね、
Rena's voice slowly grew distant. I felt myself being sucked into the void of sleep.
もしもーし、前原さん。完全に眠っちゃってますか？
He was, in fact, asleep. When I came to, it was quiet. The car was parked. Oishi-san was giving me light slaps to the cheek. It didn't feel good at all, so I woke up immediately.
すみません。すっかり寝込んじゃって。
Something was being held right under my nose. A clump of metal? It was a can of coffee.
ぬるいですがね。甘いカフェオレなら常温でも結構飲めますよ。
あ、どうも。
I mechanically took the can and opened the pull top. The feeling of the warm, sweet liquid going down my throat awakened my sleepy mind. When my drowsiness receded, I started wanting to know why the car was stopped. And why I was offered coffee. Oh yeah, he's gonna be talking to you for a minute. Oishi-san, who had been in the driver's seat, had, at some point, moved to the back. Suddenly, I had a very bad feeling about this. It reminded me of the questioning yesterday at the library. It was already too late by the time I realized I'd made a mistake. Today, of all days, it didn't look like I would be getting away. I had a feeling that until Oishi-san heard what he wanted to, he wouldn't be letting me go.
そんなに構えられても困ります。別に取って食おうってわけじゃないんですから。前原さん。
Oishi-san gulped down the last of his coffee, then stretched wide, showing me how relaxed he was. That, however, only served to heighten my nervousness.
俺に、また何の用ですか？
よう。いえいえ、別に別に。
You're going to evade the question at this point? What a deeply unreadable man.
私からは用はないんですが、前原さんから私に用があるんじゃないかと思いましてね。
That might be accurate.
別に、用なんかないです。
ありゃあ、本当にあるんじゃないですか？
There's only one side door in the back seat of this truck. In other words, my only exit was blocked off by Oishi-san. I couldn't get away. I could only limply hang my head and maintain my silence. Oishi-san, despite my reticence, relaxed and began smoking a cigarette in the car. The cries of the insects outside seemed to be growing longer and longer, to an amount of time that almost seemed infinite.
前原さんから相談したいことがきっとあったと思ってたんですけどね。
Oishi-san exhaled a puff of smoke. Yeah, he's kind of playing dirty. And that just sounds like Oishi. He definitely seems like the type to play dirty, right? That doesn't shock me at all. And it sounds like from we knew he had a history of playing bad cop, right? It really doesn't shock me that he'll take some questionable actions sometimes. The windows were open, but the tobacco smell still accumulated inside the vehicle. How much did Oishi-san know? What did he know? And what did he want to hear from me? If finding out the truth made you disappear, then if I told him, would Oishi-san disappear too? I had a feeling I didn't need to worry about that in this case.
どうしてこんなことになっちゃったんでしょうね。
Yeah, I kind of agree. I have a feeling Oishi's not just going to disappear. I mean, that would be wild, like Oishi-san biting the dust, but... Oishi-san addressed me in a low tone as if he was talking to himself. How all this ended up happening? How the hell should I know? That was what I wanted to know.
富武二郎さんと高野美代さん、ご存知ですよね。お祭りの時、園崎紫音さんを含めて4人で一緒におられたのを、その富武さんと高野さん、今どうしておられるかご存知ですか？
Yeah, we know, dude. Come on.
実はお亡くなりになってましてね、気の毒な死に方でした。
Oishi-san probably played that card in order to surprise me. However, I already knew, and didn't explain the extreme reaction he
い
expected.
や、ひょっとしてご存知でした？
Unfortunately, for this question in particular, remaining silent was equivalent to saying yes.
じゃあ、こっちもご存知かな。富武さんと高野さんがたたりに遭われた理由の方です。
Yeah, I suppose we do.
何でもですね、入っちゃいけない禁断の建物に入ったからだって言われてるんですよ。
That would be crazy if they did that, you know? The storehouse for ritual implements, that forbidden shed, sealing away Hinamizawa's blood-stained past, where the mistake that started it all happened.
村長さんや古出里香さんもそのせいでたたりに遭われたんだという噂はご存知で？
That would mean it was mine and Shion's fault. He was right. As soon as we revealed what we did,
最具伝って言いましたっけ？あそこの鍵を簡易なものに付け替えたから賊に入られたんだっていうケチがついてるらしいんですよ。
what? This was news to me.
一昨年くらいまでは西宮殿にはでっかい缶抜きとでっかい錠前がいくつも付けられていたらしいんですよ。ところがほら、 神主夫妻がお亡くなりになられて、今はフルでリカさんが切り盛りされてるでしょ。勘抜きが重くて大変だから、もっと軽い簡単な錠前に付け替えてほしいと村長さんに相談したらしいんですよ。
That does make sense. I didn't know anything about those big bars he was talking about, but the lock had certainly been a simple one. It was a pretty cheap one, too. It didn't really fit my impression of what a lock for a place you'd store something as important as ritual implements would look like.
リカさんはあの通り、
Yeah,
小柄な女の子ですからね。
that is a valid point.
錆びついて重くなった勘抜きはしんどかったんでしょうな。で、村長さんが職人を手配して簡単な南京錠で鍵ができるように付け替えたんだそうです。
それがどうしてケチがつくことになるんですか？
つまりですね、前の厳重な錠前なら賊には忍び込まれなかった。村長さんとリカさんが勝手に安っぽい鍵に変えたから賊に破られたんだ。
And so, because of their carelessness, they were cursed.
こういう話らしいんですよ。
Supposedly.
そんな話。
そういう話がまかり通ってて、一部の村人たちが西宮殿に忍び込んだ賊と賊に破られるような鍵に変えた村長とリカさんを罰したんだ。なんて話があったりなかったりしてるんですよ。相原さん、どう思います？
We have no major thoughts on that.
どう思うって、その一部の村人ってのもよくわからないし。
御三家ってご存知ですかな？
I am familiar with them. Keichi probably is
綿
not.
流しのお祭りの開会式典で各家の代表がそれぞれ挨拶をなさってるでしょう。
No,
祭りには途中から来たから。
that's
Yo,
false. You're lying. He's gonna verify
御
that.
三家ってのはひなみ沢の旧家の3つの家のことなんです。具体的に言うと、君吉家、
Wait,
園崎家、古出家の3つのことです。
that actually probably isn't a lie now that I think about it. I don't think he was there for the opening ceremony. Because I think once the bell rang for the ritual dance, he went there pretty quick and then left. He said it was like in the middle of the ritual dance, that'd be one thing, but like, I genuinely don't think Keiichi was there right at the start.
本当に古い家筋らしくてね、大昔から村の決め事は御三家が合議して決めるんだと言われてます。
The Kimiyoshi family. Old man Kimiyoshi, meaning the mayor's family. The Sonozaki family was Mion's. So the Furude family was Rika-chan's family then.
園崎家が戦後に一気に勢力を拡大しましてね、例のダム闘争で反ダムの旗頭になってからは事実上ひなみ沢を牛耳るトップに躍り出ました。でもですね、古いしきたりに従い今でも重要な村の方針は御三家で合議して決めているんだそうです。だから渡流しの開会挨拶も御三家の当主がそれぞれなさるんですよ。つまり村長と園崎家の現当主のおばあ様、そして古出家の最後の一人、リカさんです。
園崎家が大した家柄だという話は聞かされてたけど、リカちゃんの家もそういう旧家だったのか。
Yep.
まあご存知の通り親族は全くおられませんから。
That's intriguing. Kind of can't help but wonder if it's a power dynamics thing, right? Because at that point, the Furude family is gone, right? Like straight up, no one is left. So that's one less family that the Sonozakis or the Kimiyoshis, but let's be real, the Sonozakis, right, would have to contend with in terms of their power and their leadership.
古出家は事実上全く勢力を持ちませんがね。
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine with Rika they were like super important, but
ただリカさん個人には求心力があるようで、
yes,
村のお年寄りには盲信する方が多いと聞いています。
that is very much true. I mean, you can't help but think the amount of times people were rubbing prayer beads, right, for Rika. And I mean, even Rika-sama, right? I'm not the best at oh my goodness, why can't I remember but things like Chan, Sama, like honorifics, I think they're called. I'm not the best at them, but I know Sama is like, that's like deity type, you know, like Think it's the same thing as a Yashiro-sama, right? Like, same honorific, right? Honoring Rika that way, right? A lot of faith in Rika, right? A lot of faith in Rika. It was certainly true that Rika-chan had an odd sort of charisma amongst the elderly.
で、その御三家ってのが何だって言うんですか?
Makes you wonder if it's not an accident that the last Furude went missing. And the mayor, who was the lead Kimiyoshi, right? Both of the other families, their leaders were gone, right? Oishi-san paused for emphasis, lighting another cigarette.
ここまで説明しても、まだ説明が足りませんかね。
わからないから聞いてるんです。
Oishi gave me a dry, meaningful grin and blew out another big puff of smoke.
御三家の人間が相次いで消されてるんです。
Yeah.
どういうわけかね。
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the list, right? We've had 3 Furudes die or go missing.
ひなみ沢の内側の古い因習か何かに基づいているんじゃないかと読んでいるんですが、
I don't think the
それ以上のことはさっぱり。
My bad. I don't think the Sonozakis have lost anyone. And the Kimiyoshis obviously just lost the mayor. I don't know that they lost anyone historically, at least no one that we know of. Unless the Hojos are tied to the Kimiyoshis somehow.
そんなの俺にだってさっぱりです。
ですから、君吉家、古出家の当主が消えたんですから、次は園崎家の当主が消えるんじゃないかな。
And if not, it'd be awfully suspicious, wouldn't it?
なんて、思ったり思わなかったりしたりする今日この頃、いかがお過ごしでしょうか。なははははは。なんちゃって。
園崎家の当主って、誰だよ。
The grandmother?
当主は、園崎本家のおばあちゃんなんですが、
To Mion.
実質上の当主権限は、もう孫娘のミオンさんに移行していると見て間違いないでしょうね。
Yeah, the grandmother's probably like the symbolic lead at this point. The visage of Mion giving prompt directions to the adults while searching for Rika-chan sprung back to mind.
ミオンが消える?
I hadn't even thought of that possibility. All my hair stood on end. That's insane.
嫌でしょう?
当たり前だ。そんなの許せるものか。
Clamp. Oishi-san grabbed my shoulders with both hands.
では協力を、前原さん。
Finally getting really into what he's here for.
園崎ミオンさんについて最近気づいたことを何でもいいから話してください。
We have definitely noticed some strange things. I was going along with him? By the time I'd realized it, it was too late. Oishi-san brought his face in closer, almost close enough to ram into me, waiting for my next words. This pressure. Can't tear my eyes away from his. A moment, I heard a beeping sound. From the driver's seat. He ignored it at first, but then it started to bother him. So he finally let go of me and leaned into the
も
driver's
し
seat.
もし。はいはい、感度良子。
I was saved. Of course, it's not like I could use this opening to escape.
そうですね。はいはい。では戻りましょう。はいはい。はいはい。
Apparently he was being recalled. Now that I knew I'd be freed, the tension in my body dissipated all at once.
そろそろ戻らないといけないみたいです。これからがいいところだったんですが、残念ですね。
But he made his point, is the big thing. Even if we didn't really get into the meat of it, him telling us, like, hey, Mion might go missing. If you don't want that, you might want to cooperate with us. Tell us anything suspicious you've noticed, right? That alone, it might be all the hook. It might be all the bait Keichi needs, you know? Like, he might get hooked. Oishi-san flung open the door, exited, and walked around the front to the driver's seat. Left the door open. Did that mean I could leave?
前原さんは友達思いの今時関心な若者です。友人のことを警察に喋ると、なんだか裏切っているような気持ちになるの。前原さん、一晩差し上げますから、ゆっくりお休みになってよく考えてくださいね。
That's how he's gonna play it at this point. Like, alright, I made my point. Think about it.
前原さんのほんのちょっとの勇気が、結局、大勢の友人を救うことにつながるかもしれないのです。
He's kind of playing dirty. I can't help but feel like he's saying things like that on purpose, right? Like, if you help, right? If you talk to us, I understand it might not feel good like you're betraying your friends, but it might save them. Think about it. Right? It's manipulative. He's very manipulative. He's sly. Did he want to say that the sacrifices wouldn't stop with Rika-chan and Satoko?
わかってると思いますが、綿流し以降、毎晩何かが起こります。これまでは、毎年1回だったたたりが、本当に景気のいい年です。
Prosperous?
そんなの景気がいいなんて言いません。
おととい、昨日、そして今日。明日の晩も起こらないなんて保証。それを未然に防ぐのが私たちの仕事ですが、それには前原さんの協力が不可欠なんです。
He's really trying to put the ball in Keiichi's court, like make him like, yeah, you gotta be the hero. I looked out the open door to see none other than my own house right in front of me. It creeped me out that he knew my name and address. I was too sleepy right now. I was too sleepy to care.
ああ、今日はもう眠いでしょう。もう3時になりますからね。どうぞごゆっくりお休みになってください。
はい。では、失礼します。
When I was about to get out of the truck, as if to deliver a parting blow, Oishi-san said in a raised voice,
私、前原さんが話す気になってくれるまで、毎日来ちゃいますからね。
Alright, well, sounds like we can't exactly dodge that.
取り調べして自白を強要っての、もう時代じゃないと思いますんで。
I couldn't say anything in response, but me slamming the door shut probably served the same purpose. I'd say so. After lightly beeping the horn, Oishi-san's truck drove off. I went to the front door without waving goodbye. The door was locked, but the chain wasn't up. I unlocked the door and entered. And walked over to the staircase. That was where I lost consciousness. Oh, he just passed out. He couldn't even make it to his bed. It's tough. Alrighty. I'm guessing this is the chapter transition. Yep. Alright. Let's go ahead and take a look at these notes before we talk about this too much, but whew, what an episode. It's really picking up. It's really picking up. The Sonozaki family. The one to drastically expand its influence after the war was the Sonozaki family. The leader at the time was Oryu Sonozaki, who still has that seat today. Oryu Sonozaki has grown old, and today you can only catch a glimpse of who she was at the time. From what I've been told, however, she was a leader extolled as the best in history. Having become so old, aside from going out a few times a week for lessons, she spends her time at home in solitude, and seems to leave most of the ceremonial affairs to her heir, Mion. There are different views on why the successor was not her daughter, but her granddaughter Mion, but it's rumored that it has to do with disownment of her daughter and son-in-law. That uninhibited granddaughter, Mion Sonozaki, still shows no signs of the dignity required of the next leader. However, she does have Sonozaki blood in her veins, and is permitted the name of Demon. What? She still doubtlessly requires caution, and is probably hiding her fangs and claws, as skillfully as the leaders of the past did. Yeah, no, we know that. She has not hid them quite as well from Keichi, if you include last chapter. But that, I had never once thought about the fact that, why is she the heir? Instead of the actual children of the grandmother, of Oryu, right? Oreo? I don't know how you say that. I'm gonna say Oryu, because that looks like how it's spelled, but these aren't English names. I wouldn't be shocked if they're pronounced differently. Looks like there's even more about the leadership of the Sonozakis, so we'll just keep going on with that. But that did raise a good question that I had not even considered. That's...
はい。郵便局員も目撃してないそうです。園崎本家は郵便受けにハンコが吊るしてあるそうで、書き留めも宅配便も勝手にハンコをして投函していいことになってるんだそうっす。
そりゃ不用心ですね。ってことは、最後の目撃はいつになるんです？
綿流しの開会式でした挨拶が最後です。その後すぐに帰宅したらしいっすから。
恒例ですからね。 話じゃ、週に何回かお稽古ごとで外出してるそうじゃないですか。そっちはどうです？
毎週月曜に集会所で大正事を習ってるんですが、今週は休んだそうです。
This is...
欠席の電話とかは、
Hmm.
それを誰かが確認したとかは？
いえ、誰も。ただ、たまに休むことがあったらしいので、誰も不審には思わなかったようです。
The timing of it, given what we know now.
明日さ、10時くらいになったら市役所のふりして電話してみましょうかね。在宅を確認してみてください。
10時ですね。了解っす。
Ever since it started to seem more and more like ancient Hinamizawa traditions had something to do with all of this, he'd been keeping a careful eye on the three families. At this point, the leader of the Kimiyoshi family and the leader of the Furude family had disappeared. There's only one leader left. Oryu Sonozaki, the leader of the Sonozaki family. She was apparently a pretty old woman. Her dignity hasn't waned, but she still only appeared before people rarely, so it was difficult to confirm where she was at any given time. She, the last leader, hadn't been seen since the day of Watanagashi. That is actually a little suspicious. Was she still alive and well within the Sonozaki main house? Or had she...
園崎ミオンが言うには、体調を崩して寝込んでるんだそうです。
本当に寝込んでるのかな。顔と脈を見てみたいですね。
Yeah.
まったくっす。
The two of them breathed out a big puff of cigarette
おい
smoke.
さん、園崎本家と古出神社の捜査令状、申請通ると思います？
No. Oishi didn't respond. Exhaled another cloud of tobacco smoke. His surroundings now as foggy as his mind. Yeah, I think we both know they're not getting those warrants. I say both. I don't know who both is, but, you know, I think we all know. Alright, from the scrapbook 10. We're raising interesting questions so far in these. The hidden demon. The inhabitants of Hinamizawa believe that the blood of demons flow in their blood. As such, the character for demon is treated as very sacred. For example, usage of the character... I don't know what that means. Or, like, what to call that. In names is apparently a right reserved for only the leaders of the Kimiyoshi and Sonozaki families. Case in point, we can see it in the current Sonozaki family leader's name. Oryu is written with the character... with the character we're talking about. This, and only this, is proof that she is a legitimate leader of the Sonozaki family. In the same way, Mion Sonozaki, its successor, contains the character in her name, with me being written as that character. It also goes for Oryu's daughter, and Mion's mother, Akane, who did not succeed her. It's known that before the disowning, Akane's name was actually written as a different character, though it was changed afterward to a different character, still read as Akane. Right, but for a quick look, basically she had the character that made her the valid successor, right? Until she did not. Right, the character changed. The name stays the same, but excuse me. Incidentally, it's thought that the first character, Incidentally, it's thought that the first character, the Mayor Kichiro's name, I don't know why that was so hard for me to read. I still can't name that character. Originally meant demon, which can also be read as Ki. It should be said that the names using the character aren't limited only to successors of the Sonozaki family. You can even find it in the last names of the three families. For example, the characters for Kimiyoshi are likely a split-up version of the character. If you write it in reverse and top to bottom as a different spelling, it clearly resembles the character that we have been speaking of. In reverse and top to bottom. With such little knowledge of this language, it's hard for me to see much beyond what they're telling us. I just kind of have to take them at face value on anything related to the language. Because, yeah, I'm cooked. As for the Furude family, who have been in the Shinto priesthood for generations, the word for fortune teller can be written, without interval characters, as that. I think that with the addition of a demon's horn, the tick on the top of the character, this symbol became the symbol that is used in their name now. So, calling that a demon horn. Okay, so they're saying the characters literally symbolize the demons that they're said to, like Hinamizawans are said to descend from. In the case of the Sonozaki family, where Sonozaki is written as that, I can't find any reference to the character, but perhaps because it's already ingrained into their first names. That makes sense. They're the clan responsible for running the Watanagashi ceremony, so I think that instead, they included the contents of that ceremony into their last name. The Zaki in Sonozaki is a conjugation of the word for slice, and the Sono, written as that, probably contains the hidden meaning of human body, as it is a complicated mess, organs, enclosed by 4 sides. Wow, I understand nothing that is happening right now, pretty much. Okay. I think in other words, that Sonozaki comes from those who slice open the gut. That's a horrifying etymology, but okay. Kind of hard to understand the meanings of specific characters in a language you don't understand, to be completely honest. But I think I grasped the point is that the names of legitimate successors within the Sonozaki family all contain a character that means demon, and that their last name itself, the characters they choose to use for it, might be, it might mean something in and of themselves. Right? Something, what did they say? Basically, like, I mean, like slicing open guts or something. Like, there's something pretty, gruesome. Right? I don't fully understand this section, just because, all of that stuff goes right over my head. I don't understand any of this stuff. I think I've driven that point home by now. But I think they spell it out for us relatively clear, like what their point is. Even if I don't understand how they're getting from A to B, I understand what they're saying for the most part. That all of the family's names are, in some way, can be linked to the character that represents demon, right? And so, might be concerning. Request denied. I wonder what request that is. It certainly has nothing to do with a search warrant. We'll see, but I imagine that's what it is.
Ah, お疲れ様です。
どうです？何か手がかりはありました？
The officers shook their heads in disappointment. Exhaustion was plainly showing on everyone's face. That was only natural. None of them had gotten a wink of sleep since the day of Watanagashi.
社長、若い子から交代で仮眠取らせてあげてください。ここからは長丁場になりますからね。無理せず、体を休めながらのんびり行きましょう。
みんなには交代で休めって言ってるんだけどね。みんな遠慮してなかなか休んでくれないんだよ。
They might not have a choice here soon enough.
お医師さんからも言ってくれないか。
So we should like the real leader here?
ありゃ。みんな遠慮しないでいいんですよ。小宮山君、若い子から順に交代で休ませてあげてください。
小宮山さん、そうしてあげてください。
After the chief told him as well, Komiyama-san left his seat.
で課長、例の請求なんですけど。
第一、村人の噂だけなんでしょ？もっと具体的な証拠がなければ難しいよ。
その証拠があの中に詰まってるかもしれないんですよ。
その証拠が中に詰まっているという証拠が必要なんだよ。
Yeah.
課長、なぞなぞやってるんじゃないんですよ。
I think that's much of a riddle.
死んだ2人を含む4人が渡流しの晩に西宮殿と呼ばれる禁断の蔵に無断で入り込み、それを何者かが見ていた。
Yeah, that's valid. That alone could probably serve as good enough to get a warrant in most situations, but
ここまでは信頼できる情報なんです。
情報と言ったってあくまでも噂だよ。証拠があるわけじゃない。
そりゃまあ、4人が放火無理して忍び込む写真はありませんがね。とにかく、4人は西宮殿の中で何かを見たんです。消されるくらいの何かを。
消されるくらいの何か？それは何だい？
That's why I'm asking for a warrant to go looking for it in the first place.
園崎家絡みの暴力団関係が有力候補ですな。拳銃の山か密造工場か。園崎家の隠し資産ってのも捨てがたいあたりです。
大石さん、気持ちはわかるけど、あの西宮殿ってのは古出神社にある神聖な建物で、地元の人間への相当な配慮が必要な建物なんだよ。
That is, of course, true. I heard that there was an hour-long call made from Congressman Sonozaki to the big man. Chief, could he have nailed you back down?
とにかく、相当の証拠がない限り、園崎本家への令状も同じだ。特に、園崎本家への捜査は、四課と県警の暴対が絡んでる。入念な事前調整がいるんだ。
調整がいるってんなら、私直接乗り込んでつけてきてもいいですよ。暴対は三海さん。隣の雀荘で話した方が早そうなメンツですね。
課長にお客様です。
Pushing the employee who guided him in right out of the way was an old man who looked like a Yakuza member, given his crested kimono and hakama. Did he not get enough of this over the phone?
わしは議員の園崎じゃ。責任者を出さんか。はよせい。どうも。私が課長の高杉でございます。お前の名刺なぞいらんわ。お前なんぞいつだって官職に飛ばせるんじゃぞ。それにお前だけでは足らん。大石とかいう男も呼ばんか。神聖な古出神社に捜査令状なんぞを請求しよった罰当たり者じゃ。申し訳ございません。大石はただいま捜査に出ておりまして、なかなか連絡がつきにくく、私が代わって受けたまわりますので。
Acting like Oishi isn't in the room.
どうぞおかけください。
The chief's eyes were telling me to get out of here. Perhaps I'll gratefully accept this favor. Maybe I'll go lay down in the nap room.
よいか。古手神社はそもそも公暦2600年に次ぐ2500年の歴史を有する神聖にして犯すべからずの聖地なのじゃ。八百万の神々とお社様と先祖の霊を祀り、日が昇りてから沈むまで、月が昇りてから沈むまで、ひなみ沢を見守る尊い神社なのじゃ。
The 800,000 gods? Oyashiro-sama and the spirits of our ancestors are enshrined there. Keichi, you chose one hell of a place to break into.
それを土足で踏みにじろうというバカがいる。そもそも信仰の自由は憲法で定められた国民の最も尊い権利であろうが、それを自らの捜査の怠慢を口実に汚そうという魂胆。こんなものは断じて許せんぞ。聞いておるのか、大竹が。わしを怒らせてただで済むと思わん方がいいぞ。
I don't think it exactly takes a, I don't think it's exactly a leap to say that that was obviously suspicious. The fervor with which he's like, nope, you will never, ever touch that shrine. That will never happen. Bro was playing dirty in there, like, I'll have you demoted. Like, I mean, I don't know. I think it's pretty obvious they're trying to hide something, right? And we've likely seen what that something is already, to be fair. But, like, Oishi and them haven't. So, okay, some interesting stuff. We'll just start with, like, the tips real quick. So, these right here gave us some interesting questions about the Sonozaki leadership. Notably, why is Mion the successor? Would have assumed it would be the daughter. What, Akane, they said her name was? You would assume that, and it's not. Why was she disowned, right? These are all important questions. What is going on with the leader of the Sonozaki family? she hasn't made an appearance, right? Oryu has not made an appearance since Watanagashi. It apparently is not that strange for her to not show up to her lessons, but like, I don't know, the timing of it, you gotta wonder. Is she alive? Has she already been demoned away? I don't know, what if somehow Oryu was the curse victim, right? I think that's a stretch, but just a lot of interesting questions about the Sonozaki family, and this is obviously like a big focus this chapter. This is where we learned a lot about the names and just paints an even more grim picture. Just all of these made the Sonozaki family look so much worse. I don't know. It's starting to paint them in such an ugly light. It's almost like, is this somehow a giant red herring, or are they really not hiding that the Sonozaki family is that involved in everything? I don't know. It's a valid question. Obviously, though, this episode itself was a big one. Very interesting. Rika. And Satoko. Wow, that was disrespectful on my part. I was admonishing someone earlier for not including Satoko's name with Rika, like when they were, or like, you know, the villagers for worrying more about Rika than Satoko, and then I forgot for a second. Oops. But Rika and Satoko, both missing. What could have caused this? Why Satoko as well, right? Is it just because she lived with Rika? Is that it? And why Rika, right, then? Is it because we told her? Is it because of the padlocks? It's hard to say. I think the interesting things this chapter were the developments. I mean, that was obviously very interesting, but some of the interesting things around this chapter were the developments around that, right? Mion is not taking things well, right? And she seems to think Satoko is the one that's cursed, right? Given how much around her, like consistently, how many people around her are consistently cursed by Oyashiro-sama. What did she do to deserve that? I don't know. It's a difficult question to answer. She was freaking out about the curse when we were on the ladder. It looked like, you know, if Rena hadn't come back, who knows what she would have done. Speaking of Rena, she was extremely dependable, like in a very good way. I mentioned this a few times. When you see Mion and Rena acting so normal and taking on such positions of like authority and just being so dependable, right, it makes you really not want to remember anything that happened in chapter 1. With Mion, she's obviously suspicious in this chapter as well, but Rena hasn't shown anything, really. Nothing. Why? Why? Very difficult questions that I don't fully understand. I don't know. I don't know. But Rena, she clearly understands, like, Keichi admitted to her that, like, this was his fault. And after Keichi called and just had a bad feeling about Rika, I think Rena's not gonna just let this slide with due time. And so we're gonna see, like, what is her role in the story gonna be? Is she gonna push Keiichi to tell her? Is she gonna go missing as a result? If she doesn't, what does that mean? Right? I don't know. Again, a lot of interesting questions. And then, of course, right there at the end, you have Oishi. He's gonna start trying to pressuring us into giving him information, especially because he's not getting warrants. He knows that. And so the only way for him to get information about what's in there is through Keiichi or Shion. And I think it's a lot more likely that Keiichi will be cooperative. And so Oishi's basically already promised he's going to come here daily, but I definitely don't think I definitely agree that we're not going to see, like, the end of him in this chapter anytime soon, right? He will show up a few more times, at least. Just interesting stuff. It's so crazy that Rika and Satoko are missing, and I want to call this a build-up chapter, right? It's just building up and building up. It keeps building up. How? How does it just keep building up, right? Like, every time I'm like, this might be the climax of the chapter. Nope, someone else goes missing. Or there's a lot of other things to worry about, right? Every time, right? And I still just want to say something I pointed out. We have not looked at that curry garden, right? I don't know. Is something there? Would we... I think we might find something there, right? And what are the odds Keichi thinks to look, like, ever, right? Maybe he'll go back there at some point because that's the last place he saw Rika, right? And maybe he'll find something. I don't know. This was another fantastic episode. God, I am so glad to be playing this game again. But I think we're going to go ahead and call this episode here. Yeah, this was fantastic. I don't know when the next episode will be out. Hopefully, it won't be too long. I'm not even going to try to make any promises. I feel like in the past I tried to make so many promises, and I was terrible at keeping them, right? Even ignoring the fact that, you know, playing at a pace for YouTube rather than playing at my own pace probably hurt and contributed to burnout, right? Even ignoring that, right? I was never exactly good at keeping those promises anyways, so I'm not going to try to make any anymore, I think. So hopefully it'll be soon. I'm looking forward to playing again. I hope you guys are looking forward to playing as well, and or watching as well. I hope you guys are enjoying. If there are any feedback you have on the videos, I always appreciate that. And especially right now, I'd rather get that feedback sooner than later, right? That's always the case. I didn't literally restart the series, obviously, but I basically restarted the series in terms of all of my, in terms of a lot of the setup, right? So if anything's wrong, right, compared to, like, especially compared to before, right, just let me know, and I'll do my best to fix it. Yeah, that'll be all for me. I hope to see you guys on the next video whenever that comes out. I hope you guys are enjoying. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. That'll be all for me. Peace.